Welcome to Taste Buds. I'm Debra Eckerling, goal strategist, writer, and foodie. And today I'm speaking with Michal Levison of Seasoned Moments. Michal, welcome. Great to see you.
Great to see you too, Deborah. How are you doing?
I'm talking about food, so how can I not be awesome?
Right? It's the
Right?
best topic of conversation.
Well, okay, so let's start with what is Seasoned Moments?
So, Seasoned Moments is my way of helping other people connect and build relationships using food as the medium. So, I started out with families, helping them build bonds while cooking and shopping for food and actually setting the table and having a meal. And then I transitioned a few years ago into the corporate sphere because I found that all of the things that HR directors were looking for, such as productivity and wellness and well-being and connecting with colleagues and employee retention all could be dealt with during the lunch hour, which is built into the workday and is a natural meeting space and point in time, and a great time for people to take a break, step away from a desk, sit at a table, have a nice meal, and kind of take that time to be able to get that little bubble, that little air bubble in the brain that gives them the rest that they can go back to the work after lunch and feel refreshed and ready to go.
So basically, you're like directing lunch.
Yeah, I'm the lunch lady.
That works. But if it is so, you're directing these lunches for engaging conversations, right? To get people to communicate and take a break with their brain, right?
Exactly.
Does that require thinking? I mean, it sounds a little bit, right?
It sounds so duh, right? I don't know. I come from a very different culture. I come from Israel. I come from a culture that is very much centered around food. And it's funny because my friends in Israel are like, "What? You do what?" People need to understand that lunch is important, duh. But I think in this very productivity driven culture that we live in, we have taken all of the things that we used to really have built into the day as natural points, and we've erased them and we've pushed them away. And now more than 45% of all American meals are eaten in the car. And people skip lunch because they think they'll be more productive. And we do all these things that they seem intuitive, but they're actually counterintuitive to how our brains work and how our bodies work.
Well, I love and agree with everything you're saying. And so one of the things I talk about is cooking for productivity. I love that you do like eating for productivity
Yeah.
because that's what it's all about is a hitting the pause button, refreshing so you can move forward and get things done. But let's go back to food. So what is it about food? Where
What
did
is it?
that love of I it's hereditary, it's from your culture, but where did that actual passion for food come from?
So it really came from my mom and dad, who both love to cook and love to host. And when I turned five, actually, when each one of my siblings and I turned five, my mom handed us a cookbook and a step stool and let us have at it for 2 hours in the kitchen. Poor woman probably worked for 8 hours to clean up the mess, but she was gracious and kind enough to let us start our food exploration at a very young age. And my parents were always taking us to different types of restaurants and exposing us to different cultures. And I have loved food from the beginning, really. And what I realized as I went through the various stages of my life. When I was a teen, I would have my friends over and we would, have dinner together. In college, I would cook for friends who were sick and we would have meals together. And when I moved in with my husband, we always hosted dinner parties and holidays, and we continue to do that till today. And I recognized at some point that whereas most people say that the kitchen is the heart of their home, I really felt like the kitchen, the dining table, the family meal, the that experience of breaking bread and sharing food is the heart of relationships. And whereas relationships are pretty much the number one key to well-being, I find that the meal is a really great way to strengthen, to build and to strengthen relationships.
So, how do you get people out of that rut? I mean, I agree with obviously everything you're saying because it's really easy to go. First of all, these people who forget to eat, I do not understand that, but people actually forget to eat. It's just bizarre. But where's that disconnect and how do you reconnect people
It's
with that
hard.
love?
So I think it's tough because I think so many of us have taken meals and we've broken a meal down into its constituent components, right? So many people are now worried about sitting down to vitamin B, vitamin C, vitamin D, and we're like, am I getting the right nutrients? But that's not how our bodies function. That's not how our taste buds function. That's not enjoying eating. That's just fueling. And I think that we really have to go back from fueling our bodies to eating and savoring and enjoying, because the meal time is not just a time to put the stuff that you need in your body so it can continue to run, but it's also a time to take that, become more mindful and to create opportunities for connection. And, I always say that we don't always have everything in common, but we all have to eat, right? So there's not a single person out there who doesn't have to eat to survive. So it's a really wonderful bridge and a wonderful point of connection because we all do the same activity, no matter what culture we come from, what country, where we are in the world. We all eat. And so it's a really great way to get to know someone, right? It's a great way to connect different cultures. So I always like to find the similarities that cultures have through food. So I always like to say that every culture has some sort of stuffed dough, right? We've got empanadas coming from Mexico, pierogies coming from Poland, dim sum in China, shumai in Japan. Every culture has something that is intrinsically basic, that has a similarity in other cultures. So these are different ways that I like to bring people to the table and then have them really connect deeper than just what are you working on? Where are you from? But really using food as the tool, food as the kind of gateway to conversation.
I was going to ask what is the starting point, but I feel like you just kind of answered that.
Yes. Well, I work also on a smaller scale. So when two people are sharing a meal, sometimes it's awkward. Sometimes you don't know the other person. You're sitting at a table, there's another person there. You don't know them, you don't know their background, you don't know how to start. But if you see something on their plate that looks recognizable, boom, you have an opening line, right? It's like, oh, my mom used to make those cookies for me after school when I was a kid. And the beautiful thing about food is that it is evocative of memory. So it's a trigger for memories because you're using your nose, you're using your eyes, you're using your taste buds. There are so many ways that you can connect to deeper memories and stories. And food is a great way to then share out the stories that connect us as humans.
Can I tell you, you just answered the next question I was going to ask you before I asked? But that's the thing. It's the emotion, it's the memory. It's when you take a bite of something, it takes you somewhere.
Yes. It's
And
very rare that you bite into something and you're like, "Hmm, got nothing." Right? I mean, even if it tastes like cardboard and it has no flavor, it evokes something in you. It's
can I
right?
tell you, so one of the foods that I do not like in particular is olives. And it's not, I just never really loved the taste. And then this is what happened is I ordered, and this was like, I think I still lived in Chicago. So I've been in LA for more than 20 years. So this is how long ago this memory, and it's completely random. But I ordered a turkey sandwich on cranberry bread and they put it on olive bread. So there I was expecting a taste that I love, and instead it was a taste that I did not love. And any affection, any willingness to try olives kind of went away
Oh, poor
because it was such
Olive.
a disappointment.
Oh,
I
but
know.
it stuck with you, right? So here you go. Here's that memory, however many years later, and it's so I bet you could almost taste that sandwich still.
I absolutely can. And again, and it's so not me because I'm always the positive person. Let's go with the soup. You know, the smell of soup for me,
Right,
that soup smells like love,
right.
right?
Yeah,
And I think especially since soup is so well, I think you said every culture has a dough, every culture has a soup too.
absolutely.
Every
See,
every
there's
culture
so many
has
ways
a
you can
chicken
find.
soup.
Yes.
It's not just a soup. Every culture has a version of a chicken soup, I think, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I feel like, well, I was gonna say I feel like we're off topic, but it's food. So no, not
How can
really.
we be off topic?
We absolutely can't. So what is the, and I know, well, I know this for a fact that you're passing on that love of food to your kids as well.
Absolutely.
So
Yes.
did you do the thing with the cookbook too?
So I started younger. My elder daughter, I have 2 girls. So Bella, the first one, started cooking when she was 10 months old. She could not walk yet. She could stand. So she could stand on a chair and she could beat eggs. And we have this adorable video. I used to have a blog about parenting, and so I had a video series called Bella's Bowl, where little 10-month-old Bella would basically show people how to make simple recipes. So her first was scrambled eggs. And I did the same thing with Anya when she was a tiny little baby, and they have been in the kitchen with us ever since then. And so the cooking actually preceded the walking, which is wild. Not normal in most households, I think, but it's a really important concept, I think, for parents, even parents who don't enjoy cooking and don't that's not their forte. I think it's really important to take kids into the kitchen to show them where, and also take them out of the kitchen to show them where food comes from, how to prepare it. And it doesn't have to be anything complicated. It just has to be, you know, demonstrated that it's something that's important, because then they understand its importance, and they internalize that. And I think sharing meals is super important. Plenty of studies have shown that families that eat together have closer relationships. Parents are able to see differences in their children. So if there's an issue going on, you can really spot it much faster if you're having a regular point of contact. um, so I think that spreading that love of food, if you have a love of food, it's great. But even if you don't, spending that time in the kitchen is super important. And I'll give you a little tip, because I noticed this not just with my own children, but with kids. I used to give a lot of cooking workshops. Kids, when they're doing something very menial, like chopping up cucumbers or doing something where their focus is on the sharp knife not hitting their fingers, it opens up this space and it makes them much more open to conversation, which I think is really fascinating. And it's a study I'd love to do one day. Um, but that's I encourage families to cook together, because it's a way to connect through history, right? It's like you share how either cooked or ate food when you were a kid. You can share grandma's experience. There's math, there's reading, there's science, there's all sorts of different things that we do in the kitchen that can strengthen all of the stuff that they do at school and also give them a skill that will set them up for success in life.
Right, because we have to eat, we might as well enjoy what we're eating.
Exactly.
And I say this as someone who I didn't learn to love to cook till like 6 years ago when I got the Instant Pot and it became like my gateway. Oh, cooking is easy. I put in the ingredients, it comes out a meal, and it and from that l and this is one of my big things is people don't realize that cooking is easy.
Right.
It can be as easy as you want it to be,
Right.
just as it can be as complicated as you want it to be. And
Correct.
I I love so you're like instilling this love of food and community at work, and then that like leaks back to the home. So I love how interwoven it's the same message. Enjoying
Yes.
food together in every element of your life improves your life.
Exactly. And listen, I think there are a lot of people who have this misconception that there's a work-life balance. I like to call it a work-life integration because it's all one life. It's not like I go to work and then I come home and they're two different people who do these two separate functions. No, it's you have to integrate all of these things and you have to make the day at work pleasant. And I think taking that time for yourself, whether it's like 5 minutes every hour that you take a breath, you take a little walk, you come back to your desk, and then a little bit of a bigger break, for lunch, a half an hour, whatever is possible. But injecting kind of like an enjoyable life into work so that it's not just I'm at work, I'm an automaton, and then I go home and then I have to be something different for my family. No, you have to come authentically as yourself to work and then also authentically yourself back home.
Because the joy that you experience in both elements
Yeah,
impact both elements.
exactly.
Well, we cannot wrap the conversation without a recipe. So, what what is your favorite easy you'll love to cook when you make this kind of recipe? And no pressure.
No pressure. Well, I mean, you brought up chicken soup, so now that's stuck in my head, and that's one of the easiest recipes, in my opinion, because you literally are just compiling ingredients for a grand total of, I think, 5 minutes. And then the pot does the work for an hour and 15. And then you've got this magical elixir that is delicious, that can then be strained and used in a billion different ways. And then you pull the chicken and you can use that in a bajillion different ways. So I am happy to share my chicken soup recipe if you would like.
Go. I
Awesome.
mean, you basically and so my cheat is I make the chicken soup in the Instant Pot and it's like 20 minutes.
Okay, you got me.
Yeah.
I don't
But
have space on my counter for an Instant Pot, so I just throw it on the stovetop, and an hour and 15 minutes later, I've
so,
got soup.
so what do you put in your chicken soup? What is the 30-second version of that recipe? And if you go to jewishjournal.com, you will get the highlights of the conversation and the recipe as well.
Yes, so the full recipe to come, but it's basically a whole chicken, carrots, celery, any kind of root vegetables, rutabaga, turnips. I put garlic, a teeny tiny bit of ginger, and then tons of parsley and dill, and then salt and pepper, of course.
Of course.
Of course.
Because your seasoned memory,
Because we got to
you need
season
those
this.
seasons. And I was gonna say, what is the one thing you knew you what is one thing about cooking that you know now that you wish you knew when you started? And you started at 5, so, we could say as an adult, what's the one thing you know now that you wish your adult you knew?
That it just takes practice. I think a lot of people, me included, think that it's just like you're either a great cook or you're not. And I think that that's a big misconception. And I think if you can learn how to use a knife properly, and if you learn how to read a recipe properly, take your time, read the recipe before you start so you know what you're supposed to do and what ingredients are supposed to go where. I think you can become a decent cook. Okay, maybe you're not going to win Top Chef, but you can become a decent cook who can make yourself you can make yourself your favorite food. And it's just about practice and doing it over and over. It's the same as any skill and any habit. It's all about attention, awareness, and repeated action.
And communicating and having those conversations over food is another one of those wonderful repeated actions that gets better only with time.
Absolutely.
So, Michal, where can people learn more about you?
So you can find me at www.seasonedmoments.com. You can also follow me on Instagram or Facebook at Seasoned Moments, and reach out if you would like to partner or would like to learn more about how to build community through food and how to achieve wellness and well-being, both at home and at work.
Thank you so much for all that wonderful food for thought. And thank you all for tuning in to Taste Buds with Deb. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform. And you can go to jewishjournal.com to get recipes and read the articles that go with each episode. And you can learn more at tastebudswithdeb.com. And until next time, enjoy your food.